There are crimes that stay buried because no one asks the right questions. And then there are those crimes that refuse to stay buried at all. Tonight's story comes out of the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia, in a place where fog moves slowly, where silence has weight, and where truth sometimes takes its time getting comfortable. In 1897, a young woman died in Greenbrier County. Everyone was told it was natural. Everyone was encouraged not to look too closely. And everyone, except one person, eventually complied. Because the only witness willing to speak plainly about what happened was the victim herself. Now I want to be clear about something before we go any further. This is not a tall tale passed around a campfire after too much time and too much folly, and it is not just legend built on rumor alone. This case went to trial. There was testimony and there was a verdict. And somehow, without anyone ever quite admitting it, a ghost helped secure a conviction, which raises somewhat of an unsettling thought. If the dead can speak when pushed far enough, how many truths are still waiting because no one's listening? Greenbrier County in the late 19th century was not a place for spectacle. Life there was narrow in scope but deep in routine. People knew the land, the seasons, and each other. A stranger didn't just arrive. He announced himself without meaning to. Roads were muddy, houses were close with their secrets, and everyone noticed everything, even when they pretended not to. Into this world came Zoni Heister. She was young, quiet, by most accounts kind. She had lived her entire life within the rhythms of these hills. Church on Sunday, work during the week, and long evenings lit by lamplight. Then she met Edward Shue. Edward was charming in the way outsiders sometimes are. He smiled easily, spoke smoothly, and carried just enough mystery to feel exciting instead of alarming. He had been married before, more than once, as it would later turn out. But that was not information Zoni had. Love arrived quickly, and love, especially when it's new, has a way of making questions feel, well, unnecessary. They married in 1896, and for a short time things seemed settled. Then, in January of 1897, Zoni was found dead. Before we step any farther into tonight's story, I want to pause for a moment and thank our good friends at the Greenbrier Tobacconist. This episode lives in a world where patience mattered, where things took time, and where a man understood that some pleasures weren't meant to be rushed, no matter how long the night stretched on. Greenbrier Tobacconist understands that. They specialize in quality pipe tobacco, thoughtfully blended and carefully prepared. Tobacco is meant to be smoked slowly, preferably while sitting somewhere quiet, with a decent chair and no pressing obligations beyond keeping the pipe lit, which I'll admit becomes more difficult as this story goes on. Still, there's something grounding about that familiar ritual, a familiar ember, a moment of stillness when the world insists on being unsettled. If you appreciate good leaf, honest blends, and the quiet pleasure of smoke curling into lamplight, you'll feel right at home with the Greenbrier Tobacconist. You can find them on level 5 at the Mountain Mall. Excuse me, that's level D of the Mountain Mall in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Take your time, they're not going anywhere. All right, let's get back to Greenbrier County. On January 23rd, 1897, Zoni Heister Shue was found dead at the bottom of the stairs in her home. Edward Shue claimed he discovered her there when he returned from town. What followed raised quiet eyebrows. Edward dressed her himself. He chose her clothing, he arranged her body, and he would not let anyone touch her neck. He cradled her head continuously, even as others tried to examine her. He wept loudly, he protested gently but persistently whenever questions arose. Now, grief is unpredictable. There's no correct way to mourn. But when a room begins to notice how you mourn, it's often because something underneath doesn't quite add up. The local doctor attempted an examination but was repeatedly interrupted, pressed, and redirected. The cause of death was first listed as complications from childbirth, despite the fact that Zoni was not pregnant. That was quietly changed to natural causes. And with that, the matter was meant to be finished. Except it wasn't. Because Zoni's mother, Mary Jane Heaster, did not believe her daughter had died naturally. And in the mountains, a mother's certainty carries weight. Mary Jane prayed. Not once, not briefly. She prayed for 4 nights. And on the 4th night, Zoni appeared. She was not vague. She was not symbolic. She told her mother plainly what had happened. Edward had been violent. There had been an argument. And in a moment of rage, he broke her. To prove it, Zoni turned her head fully around. Now, if you're listening to this with a pipe in hand, this is usually where it goes out. And there's no shame in that. Zoni returned for 4 nights in total, repeating the same story each time. Calm, consistent, detailed. Mary Jane did not scream. She did not faint. She listened. And when the visits ended, she went to the authorities. And I'm going to stop us here just for a second. This is the part of the story where houses feel quieter than they should and where you start noticing the furniture more than usual. Which brings me to tonight's second group of friends at Sewell's Woodworks. You will find them on Etsy at Sewell's Woodworks. Give them a try. Check them out. You will not be disappointed in what products you find at Sewell's Woodworks on Etsy. All right, back to the story. At first, the authorities resisted. Ghost stories were not evidence. Now let me stop right here. And this kind of goes off script from where I was. And in my background, I have been asked many times how I feel about ghosts. Now, I believe this, that Satan himself can transform himself, the Bible tells us, into an angel of light. And if it were possible, the Bible says, would deceive even the very elect. So I don't believe what Mary Jane experienced was anywhere near a ghost. I believe that her prayers were answered and God gave her possibly a vision. And she persisted. Eventually, an exhumation was ordered. And when Zoni's body was examined properly, guess what? The truth finally came out. Her neck was broken. Her windpipe had been crushed. The injuries matched the account that she had given her mother exactly. Edward Shue was arrested. At trial, the court never officially acknowledged quote-unquote ghost testimony. But Mary Jane, Zoni's mama, was allowed to speak, and she told her story calmly, plainly, and without embellishment. The defense attempted to ridicule her, and in doing so, they made her credible. The jury listened. Edward Shue was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Edward Shue died in prison years later. Zoni was buried again, this time properly. A marker now stands in Greenbrier County, recounting the case. It does not say a ghost testified, but it doesn't say she didn't. This story sits between crime and folklore because it asks us something uncomfortable. It asks us for the truth. It asks us what we believe. And it asks us whether justice sometimes arrives wearing strange clothes. Whether silence only works when everyone agrees to keep it. And this has been the Pine Grove Briar. Until next time, pull your chair a little closer next time. The fire's still warm, the fog's still thick, and some stories, well, they're patient. So until next time, keep your pipe lit and your powder dry.